Hey, and welcome to another movie Battleground match. I'm your host today, Malcolm Ray, and we've got a really great battle here. We've got my good friend from Take 3, Rob Parker, taking on Madeeh, who I also know pretty well from various trivia things. And I've also got some really great judges. I'll go my judges first. Sean, I don't know if you've competed in this before, but you've been pretty good. So, what do you expect from this match?
I haven't competed here before, but I'm really looking forward to this. I'm always a big fan of debate, and I know Robert has got an incredible wealth of knowledge. Madeeh, I'm not as familiar with, but I'm certain that if you guys matched him up with Robert, then he's absolutely got a wealth of knowledge as well. And
I'll take it.
I can't wait to see this.
Also, here's our other judge today is Ryan Ferguson. How's it going, Ryan? And what do you expect?
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me. This ought to be a good match. I know Robert is very, very competitive. He's very good in his own right. Movie Battleground should be good for him. Madeeh, I don't know too much about this competitor. To me, this is a bit of an unknown, but I look forward to seeing what he brings to the table. I'm very excited when new talent comes in, at least from my point of view. But other than that, this should be a good match. I'm expecting some good debate, some good arguments, and good questions and all that good jazz. So let's have a good time tonight. Let's do this.
Yeah. So let's introduce the competitors, and introducing first with a record of 1-2 is Robert Parker. Robert, how's it going today?
It's going pretty good. I have not been in the movie Battleground ring in a little bit. I actually think I'm 1-3 to double check the record. But my one win was a knockout, so I do think that I've gotten very unlucky. I think in my 3 losses, or maybe it was just 2. I don't remember. I think it was just 2. I think I lost to Jake and Alex. But both of those matches came down to the last question in the speed round. So every single match I've been in has been highly competitive, and I'm excited to play Madeeh here today.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for reminding me that you knocked me out. So thanks for that. Introducing second with a record of 1-3 is Madeeh. Madeeh, how's it going today?
Good to see you, man. How you been?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't heard you talk this much in a long time. It's kind of refreshing, but no, I'm doing good, man. Like my opponent, I haven't been in this league for a while, just been busy with, life. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to get my foot back into it again and see if I can still talk movies.
So, how this works, we've got 3 main round categories that which they got to prepare. If it gets to 2 and 1, then we've got 2 speed run questions, which we won't reveal unless it happens. And the main rounds go like this. Everyone gets an opening of 2 minutes. The main round is 5 minutes, unless they want to use their one extension, and which is 5 minutes. And then they get a closing, which is up to 2 minutes, but there's not really. It's up to 2 minutes. I'll get into the speed rounds if we get there. So, without any further ado, we'll get to the first question. Now, with Glass being released this year, the question that we've got is, which 3 character would you think make the best school teacher? Because Robert is the higher ranked, I'll go to him first. Robert, your 2 minutes start and you begin talking.
All right. My pick is David Dunn, who is the Bruce Willis's character in Unbreakable and Glass. Now, full disclosure, I have not seen Glass, so I cannot speak to that. But I have seen both Unbreakable and Split, and I think it is very clear that David Dunn is the correct answer here. If we're doing school teacher, to me, that means like middle school age, maybe even elementary school. When I hear school teacher, I don't really hear like high school or beyond. Like that just doesn't correlate for me. So for me, the best teacher for like younger kids would be David Dunn. For a multitude of reasons. First off, he kind of like sees through their bullshit a little bit. He can kind of tell when people are lying. He can kind of tell he's a little bit he has premonitions, a little bit of like future telling kind of things. Also, I think he'd be a great gym teacher. That's like the subject I'm pitching him for is physical education. He was a former football prodigy, so he's like physically fit. Obviously, he's the unbreakable character. So like, you know, you always get like the stereotype of the really fat, tubby teacher who's the gym teacher who's always like making the kids run. He's just like standing there laughing and jiggling his fat. That's not this character. David Dunn's going to like run with the kids. He's going to encourage them. He's going to be very motivational. He's going to be very, very supportive. So he's going to be a very relatable character to these kids. And I think he's going to make a great PE teacher.
Okay. That is your opening. And then Madeeh, your opening begins when your time begins when you start talking.
All right, so I'm in the same boat. I haven't seen Glass yet. I was hoping to see it this week, but, you know, haven't had a chance to yet. So, again, same thing, only going off of Unbreakable and Split. My choice is Samuel L. Jackson's character, Mr. Glass. Reason I chose him was because he's an incredibly intelligent human being. So I would probably have him teach, he could teach an English literature course in a university level, I think, would be a pretty cool course to have with him. Obviously, he's not going to be a gym teacher for many reasons, but I chose him because I feel like you want a teacher who's educated and knows what he's doing, and not necessarily someone who's just good at something. So I picked him because you want someone who's smart. You want someone who's able to teach you, who has a passion for what he's teaching, and that would be the best school teacher to have for me personally.
They have laid down their opening, and we've got some really interesting guesses here. So without further ado, your 5 minutes starts when someone begins talking.
First off, just props for neither of us picking James McAvoy's character.
Well, yeah, can you imagine having 23 different teachers all at once? That would be a pain in the ass. And then the beast coming out during like sex ed course. Oof, that would be bad. So, God damn, that's in my head now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, anyways, so here's the reason I don't think Elijah Price would be a very good teacher, and that's because he's a terrorist who organizes massacres. And that's not something
I want to point out, a lot of my teachers, I have suspicions, are probably some kind of psychopaths. Like my history teacher in grade 11 was definitely a psychopath and was definitely on the verge of causing a mass murder. I can guarantee.
There is a difference between psychopath and active terrorist. There is a difference there. So
besides that point, I want to point out, if you had David Dunn as a teacher, he would just kind of stare at you and let you do the phys ed stuff and have no passion. The character of David Dunn,
he has so much passion when he is learning that he is a superhero, when he is discovering his powers as in Unbreakable, he's as giddy as a child. He is passionate.
Maybe that was Bruce Willis being giddy, but I don't think that
he played him in the movie. It's absolutely the same thing.
I know, but I would not want someone like that as one of my teachers. I want someone who's passionate about what they're doing.
You want someone who's passionate about murdering people, and half the time
David Dunn is sitting there as a security guard for his entire life, basically doing nothing more than what he's capable of because that's what he's there for.
Teach kids how to be successful. PE isn't just about physical, it's not just about staying active and staying physically well. It's also about staying mentally well. There's a lot of even especially today there are mental health classes within physical.
I haven't taken a gym class in a long time, so I don't know that's been added in. When I was doing it, was just run around the block a couple times.
That's not at all what it is anymore. It's very much about holistic wellness, which is something that David Dunn's character knows a lot about and can teach. Elijah Price gets.
I wouldn't say he knows a lot about it. I think he's had experience with it, but that's different from knowing about it and being able to teach it. David Dunn is just a character who's in shape. I wouldn't say that any guy who goes to the gym should be a gym teacher. I think that you need to have the training of how to deal with people. He's not really good with people either, so I don't think that he'd be able to deal with kids, no matter what age it was. Even if it was, forgive me, I don't know exactly what you said, but you said elementary or middle school age. Yeah. I don't think I would want someone with David Dunn's personality teaching at that level. What I was imagining for myself. Hang on, you'd think that, but I would want someone with Elijah Price's passion for specifically comic books. So if there's a lot of university courses on comic books and the history of comic books, stuff like that.
We're
I
not
don't
talking
think
about
there's-
university. This is school teaching, not university.
University is still a school. It's a faculty of education.
The other thing about Elijah Price is so he's always broken, he's always injured. His immune system is also very weak as well. Half the time he's going to be sick and out of class. You're going to need to get a substitute. You're not going to want to hire a teacher. Like
If I'm in university taking a comic book English class, I would very much be okay with a teacher not being there half the time.
Okay, but that's not the value of education. Then you're getting
no. The value of education would come from
then you're
the
losing
value of the
taxpayer
teacher.
dollars. You're losing taxpayer dollars because the teacher.
You're paying your own dollars for university. I don't know how old you are, but university you have to pay for yourself.
I'm in university. Taxpayer dollars.
So you know. Listen, I would say that if you have someone as passionate and as intelligent as Elijah Price teaching you, you don't have anyone better.
I have 6 professors who are the smartest minds I've ever met, and they're shitty teachers.
Are they passionate about it?
Absolutely. I know I had an investments class today about a guy who worked in investments for 30 years. He's the most passionate nerd guy I've ever met, and he can't speak a sentence to save his life. He has a master's degree, a PhD. That does not make him a good teacher.
Elijah Price is able to do that. Samuel L. Jackson does a really good thing in this movie where he shows that Elijah Price is more than just shit. That's real fast. Elijah Price does a really good thing where there's a scene of him in the museum talking to some lady about the value of the piece. He's able to convey that message. He's able to present.
He's able to convey. He is a psychopath who is able to convey and support.
But he's also able to teach. The question isn't which character is like the most like. Would you not?
Who would be the best school teacher? A mass murderer is not a good school teacher. A
mass murderer has been a school teacher. I can guarantee it. I would much rather have someone who is passionate and able to teach and intellectual enough to teach than someone who's just been middling by.
Intellectuality does not equal teaching ability.
Intellectuality doesn't equal teachability, but it does enhance it. Having someone who's got no personality and is completely bland is not going to teach you anything. It's just going to make you hate that class. Having someone who's passionate and able to teach, portray his message and tell you, like go off the cuff and teach you about it. That's what I want from a teacher. I want someone who can convey that message to me and be passionate about it.
Well, that was definitely a very good argument. Madeeh, I'm going to go to you first for the closing because Robert opened.
Right, we have closing.
Your 2 minutes for the closing begins when you start talking.
All right. The reason I chose Elijah Price was for this. He's intellectual, he's passionate, and he's able to convey the message. And he's able to wrap all 3 of those things at once to be able to teach other people. If you have him teaching an English literature class, specifically about comic books, which is what he loves, he would be able to show the dynamic between the superhero and the villain. These movies do that really well, where they're able to, especially Unbreakable, shows the dynamic between the hero and the villain relationship. It's one of the better relationships that we've seen, other than maybe The Dark Knight and a couple other superhero movies. Elijah Price, as a teacher, would very much make sure that his students knew about that. That's the part that he would push in, and that's one of the most important parts of most comic book lore. You're able to push the main message and get your students to understand that. David Dunn is a security guard. He's unqualified. He's not educated as far as anyone can tell, and I don't really think he'd be a good personality to have around children. I mean, yeah, he's physically fit, but that does not mean that he's someone I would want as a gym teacher. He'd just be standing in the corner randomly bumping into kids wearing his raincoat and then not swimming when the rest of the class is swimming. Like, it wouldn't inspire anything in me. I want a teacher who can inspire me, not just someone who stands in the corner with that Bruce Willis face going, okay, let's do that again. So for that reason, I picked Elijah Price. You guys got my heart rate up. This is fucked up.
But, okay, Robert, it's back down to you for your closing. Your 2 minutes begin when you start talking.
All right, you said 3 things that Elijah Price is. I'm going to say 3 other things Elijah Price is. Obsessive, dangerous, and violent. I do not want a criminal teaching children. That is the end of the sentence. He is a violent, dangerous mass murderer who rigs explosives to murder people because of his own because of his own fantasies that he's created because he's a sociopath. That's not somebody, I don't care how passionate they are, I don't care how many comic books they read. That is not the qualities of a good teacher. Elijah Price would not make a good teacher at all, just for that reason. David Dunn is fit to be a PE teacher. You don't need to have a PhD. You need to be able to inspire something. You said that Elijah Price would inspire something in you. Yeah, fear that you're going to be murdered. That's not something that I want inspired in me. David Dunn is going to be an influential teacher. He's going to teach these kids to go on the right path because he's a hero. Like, look, if you take these three freak characters, that was the question. Take these three, which would make the better teacher? I picked the one that would be the least bad because the James McAvoy's character, obvious reasons, and Elijah Price is a mass murderer. I have the only one who's not a criminal, who could actually teach a subject that he's qualified in because of his experience. And he's actually like a good person that could work well with kids and families. Like in physical education, you also have to talk to those kids' families. Yeah, for those reasons, it's got to be David Dunn.
There was definitely a hard set out battle, but we've got three judges for a reason, so I'm going to throw it over to Ryan first. Ryan, what did you think of this, and who are you going to give your point to?
Yes, sir. Note to self: be more strict about time limits with other competitors. Gee willikers, make that note big time, man. But other than that, to the
my bad.
Yeah,
that's me too. That's both of us.
Yeah, let's get down to brass taxes here. Both competitors brought in really good arguments for why they chose the character they chose. However, when Madeeh tried to counter Robert I think countered just a little bit more to Madeeh with the whole mass murderer thing being repeated over and over again. And he also brought up how, teachers do this, and that, whereas Madeeh, I don't think brought quite enough to the table with his respective argument. So with that being said, I'm going to give it to David Dunn. I'm going to give this one to Robert.
Sean, what did you think of this, and who are you going to give your point to?
I was taking notes the whole time, and one thing that became abundantly clear to me while doing so is, much like Ryan said, I feel as though Robert had more countering points. Like, for example, and I feel as though the argument that was made against David Dunn sort of recycled the same point. He's less passionate. He's not good with people. He's bland. It seems to be like the same recurring thing over and over again, as opposed to where, like, the big moment for me that actually got me to go like, wow, that actually is a fantastic point, was when Robert mentioned how Price would be sick all the time, and that would be a waste of taxpayer dollars. And it's a fantastic argument. I was like, you know what? That really works. And then in the final closing bit, with the fact that he's obsessive, dangerous, and violent, he's a murderer, and he picked Dunn because he's the least of all evils. I mean, I think that's a strong enough argument where I'd have to give Robert the point.
And with that, with 2 votes from the judges, Robert does get the point. I mean, my vote wouldn't have mattered, but I probably would have given it to Robert for pretty much the same reasons. But I will say this: Madeeh almost sold me on Price being a good teacher. He almost
did.
Oh, so,
you were that close.
That taxpayers thing I heard, and I was like, shit, I didn't think of that one.
Yeah, no, that was a great little argument.
Props on you, man, for thinking of that one.
Now we move on to question number 2, and question number 2 is a doozy. What is the best Bruce Campbell cameo in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies? I'm going to go to Madeeh first for the opening. You have up to 2 minutes, and it starts when you begin talking.
Man, I love Bruce Campbell. What a guy. So I will admit that I completely forgot that Bruce Campbell was in these second 2 movies of the Spider-Man trilogy. So automatically I was just like, oh, the first one where he's introducing him for the first time. For those of you who haven't seen the movies or don't remember, Bruce Campbell is the wrestling announcer at the match where he's facing off against Bonesaw. Sorry. So he's facing off against Bonesaw, and he's introducing the Spider-Man into the ring for the $10,000. So for that cameo, and we'll go into more of the reasons why, is my favorite of the 3 Bruce Campbell cameos.
And Robert, we go to you. you have up to 2 minutes, and it begins when you start talking.
Bruce Campbell as an actor and just as a person absolutely oozes charisma. His aura, his presence, his personality, he is an individual like no other. So when I was looking through this, I was thinking which of these cameos could not have been done by anybody else. It solely a Bruce Campbell moment. And that is in Spider-Man 2. When Bruce Campbell is the usher outside MJ's play, where Peter comes in late, and Bruce Campbell, as Peter walks in, Bruce Campbell goes, no. Straighten your tie, tuck your shirt in, tie your shoes, tighten your belt up, look presentable. And then he actually engages him in a conversation. He fixes him first and then says, oh, unfortunately, you can't come in, doors are closed, blah, blah, blah. I went with the one where less is more, where every mannerism is a Bruce Campbell mannerism, not the character he's playing. All right, so everything that Bruce Campbell does as this usher is Bruce Campbell, just that little wink. You can almost see it in his eye, that gleam in his eye. That is Bruce Campbell. I'll get into it more in the main argument, but personally, I think the ring announcer could have been done by anybody with a loud voice, and it's not Bruce Campbell. It's just a traditional wrestling announcer. There's nothing special. There's nothing Bruce Campbell-y about that cameo like there is about mine.
They've laid out the opening so off to the main round, and your 5 minutes begin when someone starts talking.
All right off the bat, I disagree with you. Anyone could have done that Madeeh D thing. I'm glad it was Bruce Campbell. What is he, Usher? Whatever.
Yes,
anyone could have done that one. It was a funny scene, but it wasn't his best cameo. Name an actor.
Go ahead.
Fucking Ryan Gosling could have done it. Steve Carell could have done it. Tommy Wiseau could have done it, and I would have been fine with it.
Oh,
he could have said, "Oh, hi, Mark," in the middle of it, and I would have been, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense."
There are hundreds of real wrestling announcers who could have done that better. All Bruce Campbell did in Spider-Man 1, yes, is it memorable? Sure. But the only thing that is Bruce Campbell-y is that little 2-second moment when he goes, "What's your name?" The Human Spider. Now that sucks. Spider-Man.
That's the best.
No,
that's the part of the entire cameo. We're talking about cameos here. We're not talking about the entire, how it affects the movie.
The entire time that the character is on screen? Yeah, no, that's
but here's the thing. When he comes on screen...
Any boxing announcer can say, "Let's get ready to go Rumble. We got Bonesaw. We got Spider-Man." Anybody can do that.
Anyone can do it, but no one can do it with the same gravitas that he did it in that moment. You're talking about Bruce Campbell moments, and I had to bring it in. Props to John Roca. I had to. But anyone can kind of come in and just say 4, 10, whatever, and he can say the lines, but no one can come in with that kind of mannerisms that he did. Him coming in that such a 2000s... No, hang on. Real wrestling announcers can do it, but they wouldn't have done it as well as Bruce Campbell did in that moment. Bruce Campbell came in, said those lines, and to this day, I can almost remember it word for word, where he changes it from the Human Spider to the Amazing Spider-Man. Bruce Campbell saved us from a bunch of movies called The Human Spider. Can we acknowledge that for a minute? It would have been a Human Spider trilogy if it wasn't for Bruce Campbell.
If we're going to talk about weight on the film and fitting with the themes of the film, mine has you beat by a landslide. Mine is a pivotal...
I would not go see a movie called The Human Spider.
Let me talk. You had your time.
We have 5 minutes to join. This is not my time and your time. Don't start with me on that bullshit.
If we're talking about fitting the themes of the movie and having it be a pivotal, important moment in the film, mine is the crux of the entire movie. The crux of this...
I would not say that his cameo was the crux. I would say that he was there just to stop him from coming in.
The scene and stopping him coming in is the crux of the movie. This scene, Spider-Man 2, the most important, most emotional, the most thematic parts of it are Peter's relationship with MJ. And that is halted to a stop because of this usher. After this scene, MJ shows up and she lists all of the people who have been to her show. Harry has been to it. Aunt May has been to it. All of these people have been to it, but you, Peter, haven't. And that sends Peter into a depressive...
He was still late.
That sends him into a depressive spiral that makes him give up the mantle of Spider-Man. That changes...
It wasn't just because of him, though. Yes, I want to point out,
That is
any other actor could have done that usher role. The usher role could have been done easily by anyone. I'm glad they got Bruce Campbell to do it, but it wasn't his best cameo. His best cameo, the one that made people in the I remember this in theaters. I remember this movie in theaters. When Bruce Campbell came on in Spider-Man 1, people started roaring with laughter. People loved seeing him on screen. In Spider-Man 2, it was less so. They're like, oh, yeah, he's back. That's nice. But he didn't really do as much that really got as much from the audience.
This scene is a turning point in the plot.
He was funny in the cameo, but it wasn't his best. It wasn't his best cameo. When you think about what happened after, like, as I said at the beginning, I didn't remember his other 2 cameos. No one remembers the other 2 cameos. My brother, who also participates,
doesn't mean nobody.
1 minute thing.
People have seen the movies too.
Yeah, but like my brother, who also participates on this league, I asked him. He doesn't remember the other 2 cameos. He remembers the first one. Why? Because the first one sticks in your brain.
Flashy. It's the most light.
Not because it's the loudest. It's because it's his best. You don't remember the loudest, flashiest shit. I don't remember half the stuff that happens in Transformers, and it's loud as flashy as you can get. I remember the good parts. I remember the parts that I enjoyed, the parts that people in general enjoy. And you enjoyed the parts, the Sam Raimi, the Bruce Campbell cameo in Spider-Man 1.
And
him
you
announcing
the cameo in Spider-Man 2, especially because of the scene where he
not as much. People forget about it.
No, Peter tries to like talk to him like 6 times, and each time Bruce Campbell's like, no, straighten this. No, tie your shoe. And that
is funny. Great. It's funny, but it's not as great as what he did in the first one. Bruce Campbell in the first one was his best cameo out of all 3, bar none. Why? Because people actually still remember it.
Time.
Damn it,
Judges, disregard those last few comments from the record.
Okay.
If I have a heart attack because of this goddamn game, I swear to God, I'm putting the medical bills on all of you.
I mean, time may be up on the main argument, but you still get 2 minutes to close out. I read to Madeeh first for the opening, so Robert, go first for your closing. Wrap it up in a nice tiny wee bow.
Okay, I want somebody to go back and count how many times Madeeh said it's his best cameo without giving a reason, just by saying it's his best. So that's the side note. So the reason that Spider-Man 2 is the best Bruce Campbell cameo is because it's the best Bruce Campbell acting performance, because it is solely Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell is a comedic actor who disguises it under a gleam of a really funny character, and that's what Spider-Man 2 is. The scene, he's straightening up Peter and then talks about him. Not only that, it fits with the themes and the plot of the movie. The scene that he is in is the most impactful scene on the plot of the entire film. That's what makes it the best. It is the best in the sense that it's Bruce Campbell being the most wink, it's Bruce Campbell, and it's the best and it's the most important to the film. Yours has neither of those. Yours is the loudest. It is literally just a normal boxing announcer. That's all it is. And I'm sorry, you can say that it's his best all you want, but that doesn't make it more than just about boxing announcer yelling the name Spider-Man, and that's all yours is. It does not showcase Bruce Campbell as a comedic actor. It does not showcase Bruce Campbell as a dramatic actor. It does not showcase Bruce Campbell as an actor, and it has no weight on the film. You say it's funny, you say it's memorable. No, Bonesaw is funny. Bonesaw is memorable. Bruce Campbell is not.
With Madeeh, you have 2 minutes to wrap up your thoughts, and it starts when you begin talking.
There's a lot of great moments in the history of cinema that are forgotten. There's a lot of great moments that are not forgotten, and those are often considered better. Why? Not because of any particular reason, but the fact that they have done more for not only the actor, but the movie as well. Bruce Campbell in Spider-Man 1 is once. Yes, he was in Spider-Man 2, and he did well, but his moments in Spider-Man 1 are much more memorable for a various number of reasons. Yes, he is louder, but he did things that most boxing announcers cannot do, which is go off the cuff. Most of them go off a script or are given something. Bruce Campbell brings to that role something that not many other actors could do. The other role, a lot of different actors could have done. Yes, it's funny, but it's not as funny. Him announcing Spider-Man is like that entire sequence just showcases Bruce Campbell's comedic ability, which he didn't. It doesn't. Yes, it does. It shows that he's able to change and make people laugh on the spot. It also shows the kind of range that that Bruce Campbell has in terms of how you can go from being this loud wrestling announcer to someone quiet and kind of improvising on the fly like a comedian would, and then going out there again. At the end of the day, it's a cameo. It's not going to be an Oscar-winning thing, but it's Bruce Campbell having fun, and you can see it more in that role than you can in the other. There's also a YouTube video where Bruce Campbell himself says that this cameo was his favorite out of all three of the ones that he did, which I did watch just while I was doing this because I wasn't sure what the other cameos were. At the end of the day, the first one is much more memorable, and it will go down as more memorable because people enjoyed it more. The second one, it's fine, it's fun, it's funny, and yes, it leads to the crux of the movie, but it's not the point of the crux of the movie, of the second one. And the first one, it's just a lot of fun for Bruce Campbell to be on screen, and everyone loves seeing him on there, which is why it's better.
It was definitely a hard-fought battle. You can tell that both are very passionate about this.
Bruce Campbell is a goddamn national icon.
I'm going to kick it over to Sean first for his thoughts. Sean, what did you think of this match?
Well, for starters, I will concur wholeheartedly. Bruce Campbell is a national treasure. There is no denying that. I felt like with this argument, what it really kind of came down to, because both competitors were very much making the same points. Mine is more memorable. Mine is more memorable. Mine shows his versatility. Mine shows his versatility. And on top of that, there are certain points that are important in both scenes, but it came down to one thing, and I really do feel like the point Robert made when he said it halts Peter and MJ's relationship, that does affect the film a little bit more so. And there was a way to counter that. I just didn't hear it, and I was waiting for it.
Right.
It was like it was right there, but just because I didn't hear the counter argument to that necessarily, because both arguments were so similar in their makeup, I think just by the littlest bit I got to give it to Robert, just because these arguments were so similar, and both had an incredibly valid reason for saying it.
Oh yeah, I definitely will go next on this. For pretty much the same reason that Sean did, I do have to give it to Robert on this, because the bit about the MJ relationship being the crux of Spider-Man 2 is an important part of that movie. Bruce Campbell's cameo in 2 is an important part of that through storyline. Well, yes, like the first cameo is how he got his name Spider-Man. It wasn't a strong enough counter for me to sway me over there. I mean, personally, my favorite cameo was one in Spider-Man 3, but that's beyond the point.
What did he even do in Spider-Man 3? I can't even remember.
He's the maitre d' who helps Peter propose at the restaurant.
Oh, God. All right.
Peter MJ.
I have a rich movie from my memory.
So with that, Robert gets the second point. Ryan, what would you have said?
Well, clearly these guys know how to make their arguments and go toe to toe. Gee, Willikers, man, guys are
I've
putting
heard
on a
Willikers
clinic here.
since 1930.
I'm old. Call me old-fashioned, man. Get with me here. Anyway, both competitors brought up really good arguments, but the thing that really hammered it home, piggybacking kind of off of what Sean said, was like his cameo in Spider-Man 2 really affects the storyline and where the film goes. So to be quite frank, I would have given it to Robert.
So with that, Robert goes 2-0. Madeeh, you do need this point to stay in the game. And this is in John Roker's wheelhouse. Question number 3 is, what Western classic would be improved with Clint Eastwood being the lead character? I'm going to go over to Madeeh to do his opening first. You have up to 2 minutes. It starts when you begin talking.
Okay, I'm going to start by introducing my movie. So I'm choosing 3:10 to Yuma, the 1957. I hate release dates. 1957, I'm going to go with version. And I would put Clint Eastwood in the position that Glenn Ford played. Now, the reason I chose this movie, because the question asked for classics, so I wanted to go something quite far back, and 1950s obviously doesn't. And I thought that Clint Eastwood would be able to bring 310 to Yuma, the original, is not a bad movie. It's not a great movie, in my opinion. But I think that it could have been made a little bit better with someone in the title role, bringing a little bit more. And I think Clint Eastwood has the potential to bring that something more that I was looking for in that movie. As opposed to Robert, who chose a different movie, which I think is already damn near perfect, but we'll get into that later. So for now, before he introduces the movie, because I don't want to spoil anything, my choice is 310 to Yuma with Clint Eastwood taking over Glenn Ford's role.
So, and Robert, it's time for you to open. You have up to 2 minutes. It begins when you start talking.
Okay, so I took this question a little bit of a different way. So the question was exactly what classic Western would be most improved if it was remade with Clint Eastwood, correct? Yeah, okay. So I took it as, okay, it's confirmed we're remaking a classic Western. Which one deserves that remake and which one deserves Clint Eastwood in that role?
Oh, okay, I see.
High Noon is a movie that deserves a remake because you watch it now. At the time, it was perfect. It was innovative. It was a very good film. It was a very important film. Nowadays, you watch it. It is very slow. It is very clunky. The villain doesn't come until about halfway through. The pacing is very, very poor. The score is very old and not very good. The action shot is not shot very well. This is a movie that I love and it was influential, but that being said, deserves a remake, deserves a very, very talented Western actor like Clint Eastwood in that Gary Cooper role. And I have actually a full pitch for this movie as far as like a directing crew, a composer. Like I have the rest of the pitch for this movie. I think it deserves a remake. I think it deserves Clint Eastwood at the lead role. And 310 to Yuma, I will get into.
You've heard the openings. Now it's time to get into the main argument. And I'll reiterate again, Madeeh, you do need this point to stay in the game. So your 5 minutes begin when someone begins talking.
I'm just going to throw two
certain
names
movies.
out there right
Oh
away.
my God! No,
Real
hold on.
quick.
I really have to say something.
Okay.
You don't. Oh my God. Okay. Gary Cooper in High Noon is one of the better performances I've ever seen in my life. He is absolutely perfect in that role. High Noon is possibly one of the most perfect movies I've seen, especially for when it was made. Yes.
I'm sorry. It's not.
Okay, if they made it today, yes, they would use much different. They'd put Technicolor on it for sure. But you can't say now. The way I took this question, full disclosure, I took it a little bit different from you. I would say put Clint Eastwood in the movie when it was made, so I didn't think of it as like a remake as it was now. Clint Eastwood now, I don't think I want to see in a High Noon remake because I just don't think that would be something I'd want to see.
Gary Cooper was old when he was in High Noon.
Gary Cooper was old, but he wasn't Clint Eastwood old. Let's not go that far. I think that. High Noon,
you need a modern take on this movie with a talented director.
It's a Western.
Yeah.
There's no modern Westerns, really. Like, you can't really have that story.
Full Age, Tyler High Water, Wind River.
Okay, modern as in, like, when it's made. Okay, I understand. I thought you said, like, bring it into, like, 2018, or what the hell year is it? 2019.
Westerns made in the modern times. Taylor Sheridan is going to direct this movie. Ennio Morricone is going to score it. Those two names right there are a pretty big blow. 310 to Yuma, I'm just going to level with you, man. They did remake it, and they chose not to put Clint Eastwood in it because
I know. And I thought that was I thought what they did with that movie was like really good. I didn't think it was that much better though. I think that what I'm saying is in the 1957 version, if you had Clint Eastwood, I think he would have brought more to the role in that time, because Clint Eastwood has that kind of.
First off, the original role.
Hang on, let me finish. The original role with Glenn Ford, he was good, but he wasn't great. I think that Van Heflin did a much better job than Glenn Ford did in that movie. Excuse me. And I thought that he really stole it for me. And I wanted Clint Eastwood, someone like that, who could be able to be opposite Van Heflin and kind of have that. Will I kill him? Will I not? What's going to happen next? The 310 to Yuma is not. I feel a bit more like a suspense movie than I do a Western sometimes, mainly because of the fact of like the dynamic between those two and what's going to happen. I think that No, it is a Western, but I'm saying that the tone of it feels very much like a suspense thriller movie kind of plays out, in that you're not really sure what's going to happen.
Thriller movie
Clint
was
Eastwood
when?
in that role. Hang
Was
on,
when?
you've already said your goddamn names. Let me say mine. Clint Eastwood in that role would bring a little bit more to it. I think he has that kind of acting ability and that face where you're just seeing. He acts a lot with his face, where you're seeing him kind of click the gears in his head of whether he's going to take the money or not, whether he's going to do the right thing, or whether he's going to leave and let the villain get away. That's the kind of thing that I wanted to see, and I didn't see it as much with Glenn Ford as I wanted to. Clint Eastwood has that ability. He would have pushed that movie a little bit further. He would have been able to get it off the ground a little bit more and push it to a higher status that I wanted to see it in. The Christian Bale Russell Crowe remake was fine, but it didn't have it as much as I want. Clint Eastwood would have been able to push it. He has that gravitas. Yeah, I'm bringing it back.
He would have been able to
He would have been able to bring it and push it forward. He would have made it more improved. High Noon is a goddamn almost perfect movie. The question is what improves the most. And you're trying to improve a movie that goes down in history as one of the best Westerns of all time. And you're going to try and improve on that by not really keeping one of the greatest parts of it and changing it with Clint Eastwood.
Okay, one sec. Okay, you're saying it's one of the best Westerns of all time. I have said 5 reasons why it's not. Can you name me one why it is besides Gary Cooper?
Besides Gary Cooper, I could go to anything. I could go to the direction of...
And I will take that. So, you had your time
the music by Dmitri Tomkin. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his last name, but Dmitri Tomkin has a killer music in this movie. Stanley...
you've talked
Fred Zinnemann. Fred Zinnemann's direction of this movie is fantastic as well. Every single performance in this movie, every single turn makes this movie better. There's nothing in this movie that you can do. Making it newer doesn't make it better.
Seriously? Okay. You're not allowed to filibuster on the show. That's a rule in this show, in this argument show. So you've been talking for the last 6 minutes. Please just let me have my piece.
There's no way I've had 6 minutes. There's a 5-minute time gap.
I was quiet while you were talking. Please have the same respect for me. If Clint Eastwood would have improved 3:10 to Yuma, then they would have cast him when they did remake it. You have not countered that point, and I don't think you will be able to. Yes, when they remade the movie, they chose to remake it without Clint Eastwood. That is damning to your argument.
Time.
Yes,
I go first.
Sorry, I should have stepped in there earlier, but no, Robert does will have to go first in the closing. But you'll have your chance to counter. Don't worry.
I hate this being quiet thing.
Yeah, I can tell.
but anyway, the main argument has been set. Robert will go first on the closing. You have up to 2 minutes. It begins when you start talking.
Besides Gary Cooper's performance, there are damning things in High Noon. It is regarded as a classic because it was a revolutionary at its time. Looking back on it now, it needs a updated take. That will be done with Taylor Sheridan, the writer of Sicario, Hell or High Water, Wind River, the director of Wind River and Hell or High Water. This is a talented Western director in his prime, Ennio Morricone classic Western composer. Clint Eastwood will bring the correct amount of both level-headedness and passion to this role that Gary Cooper also did. They were old Gary Cooper was old when he made High Noon. Clint Eastwood is old now. There's the same thing there. It's going to revamp the movie. The movie, it was clunky. The pacing was bad. That will not happen in this version. Again, 3:10 to Yuma. You said you wanted to make it the most approved it can be. It was done in 2007 with Christian Bale and I'm fucking blanking on the name because I'm flustered. Sorry. Russell Crowe, thank you. We got there. It was done then. If it would have been most improved by adding Clint Eastwood, they would have added Clint Eastwood. There is no counter to that point. I'm sorry I keep hammering it home, but that's just the truth. If it would have been most improved with him in that role, they would have done it 12 years ago, but they didn't because they didn't think it would have been most improved in that role. And honestly, the 3:10 to Yuma version is absolutely better than the 57 version, and it would have sucked way worse if Clint Eastwood was in that role because of the dynamic that Crowe and Bale bring. I don't think Eastwood would have been able to play well in that atmosphere like those two professional actors did. High Noon needs this updated take. It needs a veteran actor. Gary Cooper was a veteran when he made High Noon initially. Clint Eastwood is a veteran now. It is a good duality. I think Clint Eastwood can bring that duality to this role, make it a layered, interesting performance with the script, the director, and the composer behind him. It will be an incredible movie, and it will be a most improved on High Noon.
Madeeh, your 2 minutes begin when you start talking.
Other than Unforgiven, High Noon is my favorite Western of all time. Now, the other great things about High Noon that I want to point out, the Katie Gerardo, is absolutely fantastic in it. The score is absolutely fantastic in it. Everything about that movie plays so magnificently well that you can't say it's just Gary Cooper. Now, when you say that Gary Cooper is the only great part of High Noon and you're going to replace him with Clint Eastwood and try and make it better, you're kind of going against yourself there when you're saying you want to take out what you think is the best part and remove him and replace him with someone else. Going back to the other point where they remade 310 to Yuma about, 10 some years ago. You want to know why they didn't cast Clint Eastwood? Because Clint Eastwood 10 years ago was still old as shit. He's old as shit now, and he was old as shit then. 2007, he was probably 70 years old, which is far too old to be playing the character that Glenn Ford played in 1957. I'm saying that put him in that role that Glenn Ford had in 1957. So have Clint Eastwood when he was in his 30s or 40s, the age where the character was approximately, in that movie, not in the remake that they did. That would improve the movie. Not having him in the 2007 version where he's some old grizzled person. Clint Eastwood is not in the age range to play it in the remake now. I'm saying put it back then. That is what would improve the movie. Clint Eastwood has the gravitas then, and he has the gravitas now as an actor to be able to push that movie beyond what it was. 310 to Yuma has a brilliant premise, but it just fell short from what I was expecting it to be. And that kind of fell down a little bit on the actor performance of Glenn Ford opposite the brilliant performance from Van Heflin. If you boost that performance and they both bring out the best in each other, I don't think that there's a single thing that could make that movie better other than a better actor in Glenn Ford's position.
This was a tough battle. But despite that, I'll go first in this just so I don't seem too biased in that. This is tough because it was one of those ones in which both people interpreted the questions in their own way, and which is fine. It's like everyone interprets the question better. I think Madeeh did have a strong argument with 310, and that like if they cast Clint Eastwood in the original, that it could have been improved because Gary Cooper was okay in it, and he thought that Clint Eastwood was better.
Gary Cooper in High Noon was amazing. Glenn Ford in 310 to Yuma.
It's
all right, man. I know what you were getting.
You was messing up that. Sure.
It's all right.
But yeah, so and I mean Robert did have a strong counter and brought up the remake that they did, and I do think that Madeeh did manage to counter that by saying that they didn't cast Clint Eastwood in the remake because he was already old and they wanted a younger actor in it. So I think just by the slightest of margins, I'm going to have to give my point to Madeeh. But there's a reason there's 3 judges here. So Ryan, what did you think about this battle?
A lot of screaming and hollering, I'll tell you that, boy. But no, look, both competitors, Robert took it one way, Madeeh took it another. Very, very impressive points made by both of them. Really, really good points. The thing that really impressed me was Madeeh saying if they put Eastwood in 57 version and put him in that role at the height of his, when he was much, much younger and he was coming into, a little bit before the, the Dollars trilogy, the
right.
Dollars trilogy. That would have been really, really something to see, especially with that. Robert's point, though, when he brought up some of the names and the talent to put behind the camera and to put in his version of the film that he pitched, really, really impressive as well. This one was actually really tough because I want to see both versions come to fruition, but you can only pick one. So by just the slightest of margins, I'm slightly going to give it over to Robert on this one.
So it's down to Sean. You're the tiebreaker. I'm sorry to put you in this position.
No pressure, buddy.
What do you have for us?
Do you mind if I ask the way the question was written specifically?
Yeah, the question was worded: which Western classic would be improved with Clint Eastwood in the leading role?
Okay, it's vague enough. So there were a few takeaways from this round. Madeeh, I do think that you tried to overwhelm Robert by continuing to hammer on. As much as Robert, and believe me, I want to see a Taylor Sheridan Ennio Morricone version of High Noon. I think that would be amazing. I do think with the way that the question is worded, the arguments that were made, I think I would have to give it to Madeeh.
Yeah. I'll slide you the $20 later on.
Because the question is, what classic would be improved with Clint?
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's just the wording of the question.
Yeah.
If it was just like what remake of a classic Western, this would be all Robert. But
I'd pick a different answer,
I have to give it to Madeeh.
With that, the score is Robert on 2 points, Madeeh is on 1 point. We do go into the speed rounds.
I hate the speed round.
And we have a doozy for you. And I know that with this first one, Matthew Kearns is going to be looking really hard there at this one. Your first speed round question is: which actor played the better Clark Kent? Henry Cavill or Christopher Reeve?
Christopher Reeve.
Oh,
that's mine. That's mine. That's me.
I heard Robert first. Robert, Ryan and Sean, did you hear Robert first as well?
I heard Robert first as well, yes.
Sorry, as soon as I heard the question, I was like, "Oh my god, this is going to be good." Sorry, but if I had to reiterate, I think I heard Robert first in that argument. I can't remember what he said though.
Son of a bitch.
Right. So, sorry, Madeeh, you have to argue for Henry Cavill. So Ryan put 30 set up, and yeah, it does help a lot to actually explain the speed rounds. So with the speed rounds,
do that.
so with the speed rounds, they get a 30-second opening, and then they've got a 15-second close for the first one. If it should go to the second one, then it will go. Then they have an extra round, so it'll be 30, 20, 10 if they do go to the second round. So I heard Robert first. So Robert, your 30 seconds begins when you start talking.
Cavill's Kent is a mopey, annoying, vengeful little shit who ruins $1,000 suits by getting in a tub and trying to have sex with Lois Lane. On the other hand, Christopher Reeve has a duality to this character that is never before seen. There's a reason he's the greatest of all time. There's a reason he's regarded as the greatest of all time. When he takes off his glasses and when he puts on his glasses and he shrinks, that acting is off the charts. Henry Cavill is a good Superman, but his Clark Kent does not showcase his acting abilities like Christopher Reeve's does. Christopher Reeve's acting is on display when he is
time.
Madeeh, your 30 seconds begins when you start talking.
First of all, I'd love to get into a bathtub with Lois Lane. I don't know about you, but I don't think it's $1,000 suit either. The second point I want to make is I think that he does play a very good. He does play a really good Clark Kent, and I'll tell you why. I think that he shows that he's kind of in that investigative journalist mode, especially in Batman vs. Superman, which wasn't the greatest movie, but he's showing that he cares about people. Clark Kent, at his core, is someone who cares about people and wants to help people by doing things that he can do. Going through as a reporter and helping people and finding ways that he can do that without being just Superman.
I know, it sneaks up on you quick, boy.
Robert, your 15 seconds begins when you start talking.
Reeves can't. You want to talk about journalism? Superman 2 moves to different countries to be a journalist. Superman 3 becomes a journalist looking after magnate, tycoon, business tycoon. Cavill's Clark Kent has better abs, but Reeves has better acting chops, better journalism acting chops. You see more about his passion for the globe, and you see his relationship with Lois Lane is better.
Time.
Jeez.
Madeeh, your 15 seconds begins when you start talking.
He has better abs, but I think he also has better acting chops too. I think you're forgetting about Superman 3 and 4. In 3 and 4, he wasn't really that good of an actor. In Superman 1 and 2, yes. I think that also Henry Cavill did a much better job of showing this character of Clark Kent is the son of two farmers. He actually shows that he cares about the parents who adopted him as well as.
Hashtag Robert loves better abs. Ryan, you're the self-professed Man of Steel lover. I'll get you give your point first.
Based on the arguments, please.
Wow, that cat's out of the bag. Way to be not so secretive there, Malcolm, about my love for a certain character and a certain actor. Woohoo!
It's 2019.
Right.
Do what you need.
I know, son, but got to take all the bias aside. We can't base our decisions on bias. We cannot do that. That is unfair to the competitors. That is unfair to the 20,000 people watching this at home in the arena. So, with that being said, both made some hilarious arguments, but yet very good professional points. However, Robert brought up legacy, why this person's regarded as the GOAT, why his body of work in those couple of movies stands the test of time. So as much as Malcolm pointed out that I love Henry Cavill, I'm
He's pretty damn lovable.
He so is, bro. But other than that, respectfully, based on the points I heard from both competitors, I'm going to give this one to the young man known as Robert. Back to you at the desk.
Sean, I'm going to go to you next. Who do you give your point to and why?
I feel like the point about Christopher Reeve's duality was the big takeaway from that. I think that, for starters, I love Superman. I'm a comic book junkie, and I love Superman so friggin' much. And I feel as though the points that Robert hit on, where he was talking about the fact that you see Clark Kent moving to different countries, you see him expanding as a journalist, you see him, not only as Superman, but as Clark Kent, and he's equally great as both, and the duality between the two, I would have to give the point to Robert, even though, I think that there's an argument to be made for Henry Cavill. It's just, I would have to give it to Robert on this one.
And your winner,
Oh shit, that's
Robert,
it. All right.
Hobbit Parker. I would have also given my point to Robert. I feel that that Madeeh did not hit on Christopher Reeve enough.
How the hell am I supposed to? Honest to God, am I supposed to hate on Christopher Reeve? Are you kidding me? Let's just hate on one of the greatest Superman of all time.
Hey, I totally agree with you on that point, but yeah. So I'll go to post-match interviews. Robert, you pulled off the win here. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like I'm finally 500 in this league, which feels good. Same number of wins as losses. I always loved debating, even more than trivia sometimes, especially if it's something that I'm very, very passionate about, which I was for a number of these arguments here today. I really, really enjoy debating in certain aspects, and I think it goes to show that, like, my record specifically and who I've played and who I've lost to, like, I can really make it go the distance. It really depends on the questions, depends on the competitors, but this stuff was on my side today, the way I structured arguments. I knew I was going to lose that 310 to Yuma question, to be honest.
You goddamn right you were. Think I was going to let that one slide?
I knew I wasn't going to win with high noon, but I figured I'd give it my best shot the way I framed the argument. Huge thanks to the judges today. I think you all did an amazing job. And you too, Madeeh. I knew you were a good debater, but, man, you killed it today. That was a lot of fun.
I'm a master debater.
Yeah, me too, man. Wink. Trying to yell over you was not fun, but you played the game right, man.
Yes, Robert, I don't know who you're facing next. Is there anyone in particular you want to look forward to? taking on next?
I really think I can make a run in this league, so it really doesn't matter who you put me up against. I think my way of structuring arguments, my way of choosing answers strategically, even if it's something that I don't fully agree with, like High Noon, I thought it was the more strategic answer. So either way, I think I can really make a run in this league. So whoever you put up against me, I'll be happy to yell at them.
Are you standing now, Robert? Sit down. Take a load off. Jesus.
It's cold. I need to keep my feet warm.
Madeeh, you came so close on the other
man.
questions. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. Like I said, I've been kind of, flustered with life and like with school and everything like that the last couple of months. So I've been kind of out of it. But it was nice to get my feet back into it, like have a good match. Robert, you're a hell of a competitor. I really hope that you don't ever say anything bad against High Noon again. Otherwise, I will find out where you live. Don't worry about that one. And next time someone asks me to diss Christopher Reeve, I swear to God, don't start with me. But no, other than that, it's I love this league, man. It's a lot of fun. I can kind of say things and get away with it a little bit more than I can in other ones, which I like.
But anyway, with your loss, you do go down to 1-4. Is there anyone that you want to face next?
I feel like all of my losses have come off 1 point losses, except for this one. And I'm, I don't know when I'm going to be able to play again, just with my schedule. So I'll be down for anyone, man. Like, hit me up in the summertime when I'm off school again, and then I'll be good to just take on whoever you throw at me. Give me a rookie. Let me take a rookie on and show them how we're supposed to do things. Not necessarily by the rules, but how you're supposed to argue or yell at other people. I can see Ryan's face like, we're not doing that. No way.
But anyway, I'm going to go to our judges now. Brian, what did you think of this match?
My favorite part of this match has to be the question, who's the better CK? My boy, Henry Cavill, son, versus Christopher Reeve, who started it all. I get that. Respect. However, great match. Great arguments. These guys know how to talk, walk the walk. They know how to talk over each other, a.k.a. filibustering, even though we outlaw that in this division, respectfully. But anyway, no, my hat's off to both competitors. My hat's off to the question writers. Great job, guys. Someone's phone's ringing. You better turn that thing off. It's killing me. But other than that, good match. Congrats to everybody. You guys put your hearts out there. And clearly Robert has a thing for belts because he has 2, maybe 3 of them right now in his locker. I don't know why. Give someone else a belt, man. Seriously. Jesus. But other than that, congrats to Robert. Congrats to Madeeh. I don't know you very well, but I like your style. I like the way you think. If you're Team Cavill, I will be your best friend from now into eternity. Thank you for that.
Listen, man, that bathtub scene, you know what I'm talking about.
What's that? Yeah,
the bathtub scene alone.
That's a separate
kind of love. I get it.
Entirely. But Malcolm, back to you.
Off camera.
I've just got word from the highest B. I'm going to go back to Robert. I've got word that your next opponent is the Cobra himself, Chance Ellison.
Get the lube ready.
That's gonna be good. Chance and I have never debated. We've played in trivia a number of times, and I've won some and he's won some. Debating though, that's gonna be really, really, really interesting. I do not know on paper who's the favorite to win that.
Maybe the Team Cobra. I don't know.
I'm confident. I think they can do it. But...
I don't bet very much, but I'm betting on this one for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have a private sports book later.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Chance won't have Mike hiding in the background feeding him answers. So we'll see what happens. So we'll see what happens when we take Chance away from Mike. So, Sean, what did you think of this match overall?
I'm sure you have some thoughts, Sean.
I thought it was a really good match overall. I thought probably the most interesting question that got debated was that of who would make the better teacher, David Dunn or Elijah Price.
Who comes up with these?
Yeah, I mean,
Matt, your breath probably, and Malcolm
that would be
and
the
Aaron.
powers that be, Madeeh. The powers that be do
the powers that be need to. Damn.
just seeing how the both of them wound up debating, not just on who would make the better teacher overall, but who would make the better teacher in in whatever scenario they wound up putting them in, like whether David Dunn was, an elementary or middle school gym teacher, as opposed to, Elijah Price teaching an entire course about the history of comic books and the dichotomy between heroes and villains. I thought that, for starters, both of those things would be fantastic because you'd have David Dunn keeping all those little shits in line. And then on top of that, you could have a really fascinating conversation about comic books with admittedly a homicidal maniac, but that's neither here.
How many of your college profs are not homicidal maniacs? Let's be real.
But yeah, it was definitely a great match. To close it out, I'm not sure if we do plugs here, but I will do them anyway. Robert, where can people find you online?
You can find me personally on Twitter and Letterboxd at RBRTPRKR98. That is my first and last name, no vowels plus a year. You can find me doing admin and hosting duties at Take 3 Productions, admin, hosting, and question writing duties at Full Metal Trivia, specifically at Full Metal Geek. And you can find me as a trivia champion for Phantom Fight Singles Championship at Multiplex Entertainment and the Full Metal Geek Singles Champion at Full Metal Geek.
Madeeh, where can people find you online?
Online, that's a good thing you said that. I don't want people knowing where I live. Online, you can find me on various social media platforms at Madeeh R. If you do not know how to spell it, most likely my name is written in this video. And then R is just the letter that comes after my first name. So good luck finding me.
And to my judges here, Ryan, where can people find you online?
Yes, sir. You can find me on Facebook at Ryan Permerson. That's RyanPermerson, and on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel on YouTube at Nerd Culture. We talk about anything nerd related there. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at It's Nerd Culture. Check out my podcast. Just posted a new episode called The Nerdcast from Nerd Culture. You can find it on Anchor Podcasts and anywhere podcasts are available. And also, I've never plugged this before, but I'm going to do it anyway because this video has been fun and chaotic. Find me on Letterboxd at Ryan Movie Buff. Check out my lists. Feel free to leave a comment, subscribe to all the channels I just mentioned. You can find me competing in the various movie trivia leagues and all that good stuff there. And I will see you next time. Back to you at the desk.
And Sean, where can people find you online?
You can find me at @SandbergSean on Twitter. You can find me at Sean Sandberg on Facebook. You can find me playing in Triple Threat against Jeremy Adams and Grant Gregory in Multiplex. Ooh. And that is going to be a very, very fun one. So,
that'll be fun.
With that, I will throw it back to you.
And you can find me on Take 3 Productions, where I host Rankum every Sunday night. What the topic is? The last topic we did? I don't know, because this episode will be dropped too far in advance. I don't know. I also compete in trivia on Full Metal and Multiplex. You can also find me on Letterboxd Stardust at Malcolm. And until next time, see you in the Battleground.